On January 20, 1982, in Des Moines, Iowa, Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off what he thought was a rubber bat, live on stage. It wasn't rubber. He was rushed to the hospital for rabies shots. And that moment, shocking, grotesque, and completely out of control, became one of the most infamous stage incidents in rock history. But that wasn't the only time Ozzy found himself humiliated in front of thousands. In fact, across decades of touring, there were moments where things went wrong badly. By the late 1970s, Ozzy Osbourne had already built a reputation as the unpredictable frontman of Black Sabbath. After being fired from the band in 1979, many thought his career was over. But with the release of Blizzard of Oz in 1980, Ozzy staged one of the most successful comebacks in rock history. The tour that followed were louder, wilder, and more chaotic than anything he'd done before. And according to band members, crew, and Ozzy himself in later interviews, not everything went as planned. If you've followed Ozzy's career, you know the line between spectacle and disaster was often razor-thin. And if you're new here and love these behind-the-scenes stories from rock history, consider subscribing, because Ozzy's story is full of moments like these. Let's count down 5 times things went completely off the rails. 5. The night the crowd turned on him, Donington Monsters of Rock, 1984. On August 18, 1984, at the Monsters of Rock Festival in Donington Park, Ozzy returned to one of the biggest stages in the UK. This was a defining moment. A chance to prove he could still dominate a massive crowd after leaving Black Sabbath. But according to reports from those in attendance, the performance didn't go smoothly. Ozzy appeared disoriented at times, possibly due to exhaustion or substance use, which he later admitted was common during that era. His timing slipped. Vocals faltered. And parts of the crowd, especially fans there for heavier acts, reportedly grew restless. Some accounts even claim booing broke out during sections of the set. For a performer who thrived on crowd energy, that reaction hit hard. Ozzy later reflected in interviews that the mid-80s were some of his most unstable years. And moments like this showed just how fragile his comeback still was. But that wasn't the last time a performance spiraled out of control. Not even close. 4. The Alamo Incident Fallout, San Antonio, 1982. While not technically during a concert, the fallout hit Ozzy on stage almost immediately. On February 19, 1982, in San Antonio, Ozzy, wearing one of Sharon Osbourne's dresses, urinated on the Alamo Monument. He was arrested shortly afterward. The backlash was intense. He was banned from performing in San Antonio for years. And when he returned to touring, the incident followed him everywhere. According to concertgoers and press reports from the time, crowds would chant about it during shows. Some mocked him. Others threw objects on stage. It turned into a public spectacle that overshadowed his music. Ozzy later said he had no memory of the event due to intoxication. But the humiliation was very real, and it became one of the defining controversies of his career. But what happened next would be even more personal and devastating. 3. The Randy Rhoads Tragedy, Tour Collapse, 1982. On March 19, 1982, during a tour stop in Leesburg, Florida, tragedy struck. Ozzy's guitarist, Randy Rhoads, was killed in a plane crash. The incident didn't happen on stage, but its impact played out in front of audiences in the days that followed. According to crew members and interviews Ozzy gave later, he was completely shattered. Rhoads wasn't just a bandmate. Randy Rhoads' premature death in a plane crash was a seismic event, robbing Ozzy Osbourne of his virtuoso guitarist and the primary musical force behind his early solo success, particularly on seminal albums like Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. When Ozzy returned to the stage shortly after the tragedy, the performances were deeply inconsistent, a stark reflection of his internal turmoil. He was, quite understandably, emotionally raw, his grief manifesting in visible instability. At times, his stage presence was barely held together, a fragile veneer over profound despair. The intense vulnerability was palpable. Fans in the audience could clearly see the deep impact of the loss on their icon, making the shows often difficult, yet undeniably authentic, spectacles of a man struggling to cope in the very spotlight that amplified his sorrow. A performer known for chaos suddenly looked lost. And while audiences were sympathetic, there were moments where the shows felt more like public breakdowns than concerts. Ozzy later admitted he didn't handle the grief well. And those performances became some of the most painful of his career. But even that wasn't the most shocking on-stage moment, because the next one became legend. 2. The Bat Incident, Des Moines, 1982. Back to that night in Des Moines. During a stop on the Diary of a Madman tour, a fan threw a bat onto the stage. Ozzy, thinking it was fake, picked it up and bit its head off. Immediately, he realized something was wrong. The bat was real. According to Ozzy in later interviews, he could feel it moving. The crowd didn't know how to react. Shock, screams, confusion. Ozzy was rushed to the hospital after the show and underwent a series of rabies shots. The incident made international headlines, turning a shocking, private moment into a global spectacle. For some loyal and fervent fans, the outrageous nature of the event didn't diminish his stature. Rather, it cemented his image as the legendary Prince of Darkness, a fearless and unpredictable figure embodying the rebellious spirit of rock and roll. This act was seen as a perverse testament to his extreme persona, a legendary moment of rock and roll excess. However, for a significant portion of the audience and the general public, witnessing such a bizarre and disturbing spectacle was profoundly horrifying. It transcended mere stage antics, veering into the truly grotesque. Consequently, the moment was widely perceived as not only shocking but deeply humiliating, casting a controversial shadow over the artist's reputation and sparking intense debates about the boundaries of performance art, sanity, and celebrity spectacle. Because it blurred the line between performance and reality in a way no one expected. And yet, somehow, this still wasn't the most degrading moment he faced on stage. Before we get to that final story, quick thing. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Ozzy's wildest moments, a like really helps bring more of these stories to fans like you. Now, the moment that may have shocked him more than anyone else. One booed off stage with Black Sabbath, late 1970s collapse. By 1978-1979, things inside Black Sabbath were falling apart. The band was struggling with substance abuse, creative Arabic Khalif, Arabic Ket, Arabic Ta, Arabic Clam, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Fat, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Ta, and internal conflict. During the Never Say Die tour in 1978, tensions were at an all-time high. According to multiple accounts, including later interviews with band members, Ozzy's performances became increasingly erratic. Forgetting lyrics, missing cues, struggling to keep up with the band. In some shows, particularly in the U.S., crowds reportedly reacted negatively. There were moments of visible frustration from both the audience and the band. And while he wasn't literally booed off every stage, there were nights where the reception was far from the adoration he once commanded. It was a public unraveling. Ozzy Osbourne's tenure with Black Sabbath, the band he fronted and helped define the entire genre of heavy metal, came to an abrupt and humiliating end in April 1979. This dramatic departure was not a quiet, amicable split, but a brutal, public severing of ties that shocked the rock world. For a frontman who had become the very face and voice of heavy metal, the Prince of Darkness, it was a truly brutal fall from grace. The internal conflict, mounting substance abuse issues, and deteriorating performance that led to his ultimate dismissal were all factors, but the emotional impact of being fired from the band he co-founded was immense. The full weight of this career-changing event played out in front of thousands of fans, a public humiliation that marked the end of his foundational era with Black Sabbath and forced the rocker to begin a new, uncertain chapter in his career. This expulsion, despite the dark circumstances, would eventually pave the way for the hugely successful solo career that cemented his legendary status. Ozzy Osbourne's career has always lived on the edge between chaos and brilliance. The same unpredictability that made him a legend also led to moments of public embarrassment, controversy, and raw vulnerability. But maybe that's why his story still resonates. Because behind the outrageous headlines and shocking moments was a performer who never hid the mess and never stopped getting back on stage, no matter how many times things went wrong. And the truth is, some of Ozzy's greatest comebacks came right after his worst humiliations.